How do you handle Puka Nacua in drafts now that he's checked into rehab? Did one AFC tight end just have cold water thrown on his 2026 breakout? And which second-year player might be on the verge of something big despite playing on a bad offense? Plus 11-time FFPC Dynasty League champion Steve Ezzo drops by to break down Juwan Johnson, Matthew Golden, and so much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men that need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour Extra Rep spinoff, of course, FFPC Insider Access and the Fantasy Football Players Championship. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to point out what you need to know about the latest report on Jalen Hurts, how bullish you should be on Tank Dell, and then 11-time FFPC Dynasty League winner Steve Ezzo is going to discuss Aaron Rodgers, Brian Thomas Jr., and so much more. The show is at HSFF Hour on X. Of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship over at KFFSC.com. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to reach us there. And you can always email the show at, high stakes fantasy football at gmail.com. I want to let you know that we'll try to get to all of your X posts, chat room questions, and emails coming up later on in the program, in our fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Shout out to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting verklempt because it's exciting to be an FFPC player right now. Why? Because we got a lot of stuff going on. The FFPC Dynasty Orphans and Empire Dynasty Orphans available for as little as $1 right now at myffpc.com. So if you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football year-round, that's where to go. The Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament and Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournaments will close 3 weeks from tomorrow if they're not already at capacity. I think they're both about 70%, three-quarters full right now. Get in on those $40,000 and $10,000 grand prize. Enter the Superflex version for as little as $35. The Big Gorilla is live drafts, slow drafts going on right now. $1 million grand prize, $350 to enter. 7 bananas and early Rampage promos going on. And of course, the Baby Gorilla for the first time ever, $125 to enter, a $100,000 grand prize. Register and draft those leagues right now at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. More coming up on that. Tell you what's going on with the schedule for the rest of the week. Yeah, Fantasy Meatball already in the YouTube chat right now. Good old Michael Kinzel. Hi, Balky. Happy hump day, LOL. Yes, it is hump day for sure. And we will get over the hump by the end of tonight's show. There is no chance that we could do it without my co-host tonight. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. He runs the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, which I would encourage you to register for some leagues at and have some fun now at KFFSC.com. Please welcome in Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Good evening, sir.
Oh, Bulky, get me off this phone. All I'm doing is that.
'Tis the season.
You're not kidding. And yeah, you're not kidding. Hey, voluntary minicamp start the day after, the Tuesday after this Easter weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. UFL football is this week, and while we don't have many players that will graduate from that and have fantasy relevance, in this upcoming season. We do hear a name or two on occasion that drafters have invested draft picks in that are no longer in the league, but earning their pay in the spring league. So it's a wonderful time of the year, Balky. It's always wonderful to see you. You look so handsome, man.
Oh, well, thank you.
You got, it's just, and are you drafting anywhere? I am simultaneously drafting in the Baby Gorilla and the Big Gorilla. And I'm looking forward to entering a best ball here in a few days.
I'm excited. Drafting with the KFFSC right now in the Sweet 16, the main event, and of course the Draft Masters going on there right now. Can't get enough of it. And I think, one of the things, very, very rarely, and I mentioned this before, very rarely do we get a chance to lead off the show with breaking news, but we do have a little bit of breaking news this evening, and it comes to us from Southern California. Adam Schefter reporting that Puka Nacua has checked into a, quote, luxury treatment center. Levi McCathern, who is Puka Nacua's attorney, spoke with the California Post, or at least issued a statement to the California Post that Nacua is now in rehab in Malibu. Now, we were talking about Nacua. We may have been talking about him last week about this civil suit that alleged that he bit a woman and used some anti-Semitic language on New Year's Eve. But Nacua is now in rehab. Sean McVay's weighed in. He says he's hopeful Nacua is going to grow from this and be a Ram for a very long time. This clinic that he's in, I think, is known for helping people with drug and alcohol abuse problems. It's really bad for him, bad timing for him, because he's going to be coming up on a contract extension soon. And obviously this is probably going to factor into it. Number one, we both wish Puka Nacua the best, and hopefully he comes out a lot better, because of this. But this is a fantasy football podcast, and I have to bring up the fantasy spin on this, Ferrell. There's sort of been a big three amongst the rookie receivers this year. I think there's a big three amongst the veteran receivers in redraft leagues. In the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, there's three guys going right up at the top. This is courtesy of Fantasy Mojo, at Fantasy Mojo on X, fantasymojo.com. Darren Armani runs a great website. If you are running an FFPC team this year, you should be running to fantasymojo.com and getting a subscription there. In the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, over the course of the last nearly 24 drafts, Chase, Nacua, and Jigba, 103, 104, 105. Does this news drop Nacua out of that tier for you? How significant is this for people drafting in that front half of the first round? Do they want to stay away from Nacua, or do you still want to be in business with him, Ferrell?
Well, let's take a wait and see approach. This is quite disturbing. I didn't particularly, sometimes the social lives of players, they can become a target, but this seems there's something at play here. I never like it when your attorney is your spokesperson. I never like that. So let's just play this one by ear. In our Sweet 16 Best Ball Championship in the KFFC, a drafter chose him at the number one position this past. 1-1.
Yeah, and I get it. And if this is not enough to get you to shy away from Nacua, I'm totally on board. I think wait and see is probably the best approach, Ferrell. But
yes, and if you're a dynasty player, send that Puka Nacua owner a 5th round draft pick. See if they'll take it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think in redraft leagues like the Never Too Early Tournament, if he is sitting out there at the 105, I certainly would not have a problem bumping McCaffrey down below for him. Trey McBride, I would have no problem taking Nacua over him. So I think you could still make a case for Nacua here. As far as the reporting that's been done on this, it sounds like OTAs are still a possibility. And if that's the case, then, and I think the other reporting stated that he's been there for a while. This wasn't a new thing that he just got there. So wishing nothing but the best for Nacua. For those of you drafting right now who really want us to take a stand on it, I'm not bumping him down a whole lot right now, if at all. I think I'd rather take Chase ahead of him. It's still a question. I mean, I guess it probably takes Smith and Jigba ahead of him right now, but it's close.
Yeah, the problem is that there. How long do you wait? How many? I don't think it takes a lot of courage to take a Puka Nakua. So, if you're drafting towards the end of the first round, chances are if you get a chance at him, you'll go ahead and take him.
Yeah, I end of the first round slam dunk for me, no question. I want to get into this Jalen Hurts story. Speaking of other things that weren't great for the player that were in the news, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN and Tim McManus, who I believe is the Eagles beat reporter for ESPN, quoted more than a few sources that were critical of Jalen Hurts after this 2025 season. He was 16th out of 40 qualifying quarterbacks in EPA per dropback, 26th in dropback success rate. That was just ahead of Bryce Young and just behind Jacoby Brissett. One source told ESPN, quote, poor body language, not always bought in, not the most coachable, and the players notice. Though there is plenty of blame to spread, Hurts has had a hand in the offense becoming calcified. And it goes on to say that he's pushed back on changes to the scheme. He's been changing plays a lot at the line of scrimmage. They get a new offensive coordinator this year for seemingly like the 4th or 5th year in a row. I don't know what it's been. Sean Mannion, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sean Mannion, who was the quarterback's coach for Green Bay last year, is now the new OC for Philadelphia. And Jeffrey Lurie was actually talking about this, I think either yesterday or today, about these big changes that were going to be happening in the Philadelphia offense. Our good buddy Brian Drake from Fantasy Points was talking about this a couple months ago in February, where he said you're going to see significant changes on this offense. And now we're hearing it from Lurie and Sirianni and Sean Mannion. So I think the question here is with Jalen Hurts. This doesn't paint him in the right picture, but Ferrell, this is how good fantasy players play it. They react properly to it. What's the proper reaction for Jalen Hurts on this story? Is this something that we bump him down? He's quarterback 7 right now, going in the early 7th round of the Never Too Early tournament. Do we bump him down and move guys like Herbert, Dart, maybe even Lawrence ahead of him? Or is this somebody that we're buying the dip that we're still taking at cost? Certainly, you don't have to overdraft him at this point. There are some people that are going to be turned off by this story. What's the proper way to handle Jalen Hurts right now, and how much stock are you putting into what these sources that Fowler and McManus had? How much stock are you putting into what they're saying about him and how it affects him in fantasy this year?
Let's buy him at the dip and take advantage of that. It's an odd time for this story to break, especially on the positive heels of signing the 33-year-old offensive coordinator. They interviewed multiple guys for the job. It's like they're looking for the right kind of guy. And if you didn't watch the Eagles play a lot of games and only watched Red Zone, you saw Philadelphia doing their thing. You just didn't see as much of it. But when you watch the games, there were some problems, especially problems with A.J. Brown, the wide receiver. You don't know where that kind of thing start. My father had one of his token sayings was "can't stand prosperity." And these guys last year could not stand prosperity. The coaching, you can understand why the offensive coordinator got fired last year or moved on, because it's a situation where just the one thing that I love, a play action pass. They ran very little of that. If you've got a running back like Barkley in the backfield, I'd play action all the time. They don't send players in motion much in the offense. So I think the whole offense is going to look new. Obviously, they looked to find someone that they thought could link up and work with this quarterback and all the other players on this offense. But look here, if you can't coach Jalen Hurts, you should get the hell out of the business. That's really what you should do. This guy has been Super Bowl MVP, one of the best players in the league. He wins games at the rate of like 3-1, something like that. You've got to find a way. This bump in the early part or the middle part of his career, I guess we should say. You've got to find a way to bring that together. That's why you get hired to be in a job like this. If you're a coach and you've got, as in the coaching world, they've now got the shield on the resume, then they've got to earn that. And the players got to step up and say, everything that went down last year is going to change. yeah, from fantasy football perspective, if we saw the worst from him last year, it didn't necessarily kill you, and I think you've got a good chance to win with Hurts this year. And there's plenty of quarterbacks available that you can pair with him to make this work. We're not looking at the schedule, so we don't know how to put that aspect together of it. But I like the division he's in. I could go on and on. Don't you like the idea of Jalen Hurts playing the Giants, the Commanders, and the Cowboys for 6 games?
I do. And I like the idea of him slipping in drafts now as a result, too, because I'm definitely not staying away from him. I've never been the biggest fan of Nick Sirianni. And there's not a whole lot of people I don't care for, but he's always rubbed me the wrong way. But in his defense, I will say that when you have all this adversity like he's been facing with this offense last year, I think back a couple of years ago when they replaced both offensive and defensive coordinators, ended up winning a Super Bowl. And now you got the A.J. Brown stuff and the Jalen Hurts stuff. I do think that Sirianni is kind of built for adversity, and I think he's built for when somebody takes a bite out of him, he takes a bigger bite back. And teams usually take on, Sigmund Bloom says this from football guys all the time, teams take on the personality of their quarterback and their head coach. And I think if the Eagles, the more they take on the personality of Sirianni, the more they're going to have the attitude of laying waste to not only their opponents, but everybody who called them out and said that, this is not a good situation. It's not going well in Philadelphia right now. I think we're going to see a nice little bounce back from Philly this year.
I like your perspective on that, because if they were able to get that us against the world mentality and come together that way, I had to look up calcification. I found that to be a very interesting application of a medical term to the stoic and hardened and dense Jalen Hurts, and I don't think he's any of those things. So,
Ferrell, the next thing I want to bring up, and you're probably sick of talking about Dalton Kincaid now, but every single time I think we've fleshed out everything there is, then there's another report that comes out about Kincaid. Joe Brady was speaking to the media, and he said that Kincaid is probably going to be managed throughout the 2026 season. I want to make everybody aware that this is April 1st. And they're already talking about managing this dude's knee through the 2026 season.
Yeah.
In 2024, he tore his PCL, and Kincaid decided not to have that ligament surgically repaired. Quote from Brady: "There's a lot of things that he's pushing through that you guys might not see. And I think some of it's just learning how to play with certain elements of some movements that might not feel great, and he's had to push through that." Brandon Beane is the GM, and Brady both talked about managing the practice time for Kincaid this year to make sure he's as fresh as possible for games and he's not having to tolerate any more pain than he needs to. But Ferrell, I don't feel great drafting a player where, this has got to break a record for like knee management, planning. That they're already talking about doing this already in April. There's a long time before the season. The NFL season is not going to start for another 5 months. And so for this to come out in April, I have serious misgivings. And it stinks because I know there's a lot of smart people out there expecting a breakout from Dalton Kincaid this year. And maybe his knee is more likely to break than his fantasy game breaking out. Dalton Kincaid going as tight end 11 right now, behind Gadsden and Ferguson, ahead of Kittle and Kelsey. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm a lot more bearish having this. Maybe I'm putting too much stock into this report, but this does not give me the warm fuzzies at all about Kincaid.
It was not. This player was not for me even before this report. We've talked about it before, Balky. Let's just go back to what we talked about the Eagles. It's a full culture situation. Now here with Kincaid, we've talked about the training staff being the real superstars, the unsung heroes of the NFL. Sometimes they get these guys ready to play. And I think that's what they mean by management. A veteran like this is not going to practice quite as much. We see that with Kittle out in San Francisco as well, and other players. They just don't make a whole lot of noise about it. But the tight end is very special and very important to the FFPC. There's many tools in Buffalo to move the ball. Kincaid's a talented tight end, but I see other guys that are not only talented, but leaned on more effectively and more necessarily by their offenses. So I think we need to just hope that Mr. Kincaid does well, and those tight ends drafted around him and slightly after him would be who I is targeting. Now, if he falls 5 or 6 spots, it begins another conversation.
If he slips, I mean, you're talking about like if Kittle, Kelsey, Sadiq, Goddard, likely, if they all move ahead of him, then yeah, it becomes a value.
If he gets down there with Dalton Schultz and who's a top 5 pass catching tight end from last year, but if he gets down there with Dalton Schultz and some of the things like that, then it's, that's where I've always seen him anyway before this news.
Based on what we just said about Kincaid, you can probably understand that the HSFF hour host's not going to have a whole lot of Dalton Kincaid this year, as it stands right now anyway. No. Let's talk to a gentleman right now who has had a lot of success in the FFPC, especially in 2025. We'll bring in our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, he is an 11-time FFPC Dynasty League champ, and 9 of those titles came this past season alone. He's here tonight to talk about some of the players that he has on those teams, what cut down was like for him getting his rosters down to 16 players. He's also going to wax poetic on Kyron Williams, Terry McLaurin, and so much more. Please welcome in onto the program, Mr. Steve Ezzo. Steve, welcome in. Happy Wednesday evening. How's it going tonight, sir?
Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. Be a pleasure to chat some fantasy with you guys.
Thank you, Steve.
We are excited to have you for sure. Before we'll get the non-fantasy stuff out of the way, when you are not crushing all these FFPC Dynasty leagues, Steve, what are you doing for a living?
I'm a buyer for TJX Companies, which owns TJ Maxx and Marshalls. I've been there for 28 years, so I've been negotiating different deals for my company for a long time, and enjoy taking that over to the fantasy world.
28 years. Did you start in the back room when you were 12 years old?
Right out of college.
28 years. What was your first position right out of college?
It's called an allocation analyst, analyzing merchandise, sales, and inventory kind of stuff.
Another numbers guy, Balky, bringing it into what the people want. This is a perfect training for a fantasy football player. Did you know you were being trained to play fantasy football when you not only had your education and then chose your job?
I've been playing fantasy since the 90s, and before that was collecting baseball cards in the 80s in the junk wax era, wasting my money on that stuff, but always analyzing my Beckett price guide on the baseball cards, and that kind of transitioned right into my job and right into the fantasy stuff later on after the card collecting was kind of over.
It's so funny. It's so funny, Steve, that you bring that up, because I'm 46 and I grew up like, late 80s, early 90s, like in the heyday when baseball cards were basically no longer what they were worth. That's the largest part of my collection, which I still have. I'm still hoping at some point they regain some value, but
maybe another 20 years we'll hit it big.
Another 20 years, exactly. But it's so funny because I was doing the same thing back then. But when I stopped really card collecting was when I got into fantasy sports, fantasy football, fantasy baseball. It's kind of more of a natural transition than I think a lot of people think. But I was kind of done with card collecting once I started playing fantasy football, for sure.
Exactly. I just find, I've been playing fantasy since the 90s, and just a couple of years ago found my FFPC. Always had the idea in my head, I'd love to play Dynasty, but really never had the group to put together of 12 people that you could count on. And finally somehow came across my FFPC, kind of poking around on the internet and going, oh, they're guaranteed. They're going to fill these every year, no matter what. And got one of my friends, Mark, involved in it as well. And we own a few teams together, and certainly grew my team base by quite a few. Started off with a few orphans, then started drafting some, and purchased some other ones, and kind of put together a nice roster of teams, and really enjoying it.
I don't think it's so transactional, Steve. I don't believe you purchased them You adopted them.
That's right.
That's the kind of individual. There's somebody calling me. That's the kind of individual you are. Let me ask you, Steve. We've been talking tight ends, and the player that seems to be gaining universal good wishes and great vibes from would be Gadsden with the Chargers. And I love this player in college. I think he's a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. That's a whole nother story. Since you are the expert buyer, are you buying high on Gadsden this year?
I would say I think he might be my highest owned player, strictly from the first sign of life after he'd been dropped by most teams last year. I made an aggressive bid on him across all my leagues in waivers and ended up with him on more than half my teams. I'm very hopeful for his future, having that kind of investment in him. I think with him, it's going to come down to the amount of snaps he gets. Is he playing that Dalton Kincaid 50, 60%, or is he going to break through to a 70, 80% kind of snap rate? Is he going to soak up some of those Keenan Allen targets? Is he going to play a little bit more in the slot? I have a lot of faith in McDaniel to really put a nice offense together there. I'm not sure where it's going to go. I'm hopeful it goes Gadsden's way and he ends up playing a lot of slot targets outside of the tight end that gets him on the field a little bit more. But I think I'm kind of taking a wait and see. I already own him in so many leagues, not somebody I'm going out and trying to get him at value right now, but I'm holding, hoping it works out in a positive way.
Well, Steve and Balky, have we determined that Keenan Allen is not going back to the Chargers?
He's unsigned. There's
right.
certainly a non-zero chance that he could go back there. Maybe it's higher than a non-zero chance, but a lot of the stuff I've read from people covering the team, they don't seem very bullish on a return of Allen to the Chargers.
Interesting.
So that's the way I see it. So the other thing, by the way, I should shout out Doopy Smalls in the YouTube chat right now. Stevie wants to know, since you've been playing fantasy football in the 90s, ballpark, can you even wrangle in a number of how much you
I have a question before our guest answers that. Doopsy, if you are with a tax collection service, either state or federal,
Yes.
You have to put that in the message now. You have to identify yourself.
like when the drug dealer asks, like, "Hey, are you a cop?"
Are you the cop there, Doopsy?
Um,
Go ahead at your own risk there, Steve.
I have no clue where I'm sitting all time. I'm actually in some leagues with said Doopy Smalls, one of the guys I share some leagues with, and we compete against each other in some leagues. I've had some successes, some big wins on DraftKings over the years for some large sums, and had some years where I was down some large sums, and not sure where it all. I'd have to go back and check all the W-2s from all.
I think you've already fulfilled your responsibility in that regard. Doopsy's just baiting you to brag about yourself.
Yes.
That's what Doopsy's all about.
I think back to one of my other fantasy football shows I do. My co-host was telling me that this is before last season, Steve, Juwan Johnson was going to be in for a big year. And, this is a dude who's never topped 600 receiving yards, guy who's had 50 catches in a season once. I didn't really buy into it. And then yet when I connect the dots together, I remember that he did sign a contract extension before the 2025 season. And lo and behold, Johnson had a career of the year last year, 77 catches, 889 yards, gets into the end zone 3 times. Knowing that he had a career year, knowing that New Orleans has the 8th overall pick in the draft, a pick that they could very well use on one of the big 3 wide receivers, how nervous should you be? How proactive should you be, especially in a tight end premium league like the FFPC? How proactive should you be about trading Juwan Johnson now, knowing that there's a lot of things lining up that could cause his 2026 season to not be nearly as good as his 2025 campaign? Or perhaps Occam's razor would dictate here, you just can't get much for him anyway. What's the proper way for FFPC Dynasty owners to be treating Juwan Johnson right now?
I think he's an undervalued asset for what you can get him for. I actually picked him up in a few leagues recently for, a later third round pick to pick up to improve the last spot on my bench. He was a guy I was high on 3 or 4 years ago, and it never really panned out. He never played enough snaps for it to pan out, and fantasy wise was always kind of splitting with a Foster Moreau and a Taysom Hill. So for the value, I guess I'm kind of high on him, that he's got the same coaching staff. He's gone to more of the 80% of the snaps, 80% of the routes run, which I don't really see that changing next year unless they were to draft a high-end tight end. They didn't really address that position in free agency. Taysom Hill has now kind of gone away. So as long as he's playing that 80% of the snaps, 80% of the routes run, I think he can give you that 70-plus catch range. Might even have a little more touchdown upside than he's had the previous few years. I think he's been in the 4 or 5 touchdown range. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 7 or 8 with an improved Saints offense. And he's available for a third-round pick that you're really is a dart throw. You don't know what you're going to get. And you could have Johnson on your bench that if you're in a pinch on a bye week or with injuries, can even give you 12 points out of the flex in this kind of format in a tight end premium.
That third round pick, I love the way the dynasty players talk about the draft. They don't even talk about the 20. Well, okay, I agree with that. Improving offense, and we want you to throw in there the improving quarterback, because he definitely is. Shuck definitely is an improving quarterback. The situation with the LA Rams backfield. I've drafted Williams. I've drafted Blake Corum. I'm very happy to have both players where they're going in the draft. Naturally, I prefer Williams when it works out right. I'd like to get him. Balky, I wouldn't mind if you would tell us where Darren is posting some numbers on Williams, because I think he's that much of a bargain wherever he goes. And Corum had a great end of the season last year, but the Rams rushed the ball 465 times a year. Steve, don't you think there's room enough for both of them in this backfield?
I think there is. I think Kyren, his value's fallen off quite a bit for what his trade value is in Dynasty from what it was a year ago, coming off the big workhorse type seasons. I think the one thing that could change and spike his value is there was so many of the short touchdowns that would have gone to Kyren went to Devontae last year. They made that push for Stafford to be MVP. If a little bit of that fell back towards the rushing attack and his touchdowns kind of pop back up, I think he could be a value right now for where people are valuing him. Knowing that he's not going to be the workhorse 90% carry guy, but still, I think he's still going to be in that high-end RB2 solid guy to have on your roster. That's going to be a great point scorer for you.
As a fledgling dynasty player such as I am, what should I offer for Williams? What are they going to buy? What kind of draft pick can I give away for Williams?
If you can get a pick anywhere from the 8 to 12 range, I think it's a great pick in a draft where the back end of the first round, there's really no.
Well, I want to acquire Williams. So
you want to acquire
Williams. So what am I going to give up?
If you had the 110, I would offer the 110. If you had a lower level running back, another guy we might talk about, RJ Harvey, who I think might be a little undervalued and come down, but maybe it's RJ Harvey in a late second, early third to upgrade to Kyren, that kind of thing.
Guys, this might surprise you. Maybe you already know this. Kyren Williams is exactly 1 day short of being 3 months older than Blake Corum. I'll repeat that in a different term.
They're the same age, Buck.
Basically, Kyron Williams is 3 months older than Blake Corum, which I think is surprising because we think Williams has been around for a while. He's got to be much older. He's really not.
Where did he play college ball?
Kyron Williams went to the University of Notre Dame.
So, see, he's been on television forever.
Yes, that is true, 100%.
He and Captain Kangaroo.
Blake Corum went to Michigan, so he's been on television for forever.
Yeah, not really.
The numbers you asked for, Ferrell? Kyron Williams, running back 16 at the 307. Blake Corum, running back 37 at the 910 in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Still about 6 rounds separating these guys and about 20 running back slots. So there you go.
So again, the question is, how many carries will separate these guys?
Oh, now now you're on to something. And if we look at the Ram stats from last year, and you kind of alluded to this, Ferrell, the big finish that Corum had. But if you look at in totality, you had Kyron Williams at 259 carries, Blake Corum with 145. So Kyron Williams kind of doubled him up as far as it goes there. Williams had 36 catches, Blake Corum only 8 catches last year as well. So there is a significant. We know Corum finished strong, but we do know that Williams is still buttering the bread of the Rams backfield, so to speak. There you go. Now, a guy who maybe is a little bit light on the butter as far as buttering the bread in the Broncos backfield is RJ Harvey. I brought this up before too, Steve. I was a little surprised to see the numbers on the J.K. Dobbins deal. Did not think that they'd be paying him that much. And I've also heard, and I don't know who's reporting this out of Denver, but somebody reputable. Don't be surprised if Denver takes a running back that's going to have a significant role in 2026 in the NFL draft. How different, all these things, summing up this question, how different do you think RJ Harvey's role is going to be in the Broncos backfield in 2026 compared to what it was his rookie season last year?
I think Denver, the one thing they learned is he's not great running the ball between the tackles. I think it's some of the worst numbers in the league as far as his yards per carry when he's attempting, inside runs. Peyton has still had some good things to say about Harvey having a better season next year. I think they need to lean into the things he does well. There's a reason why they needed to bring back Dobbins. Harvey can't run up the middle. I think they need to use him more as a pass catcher on these outside runs. You saw how explosive he is. He scored double-digit touchdowns. But he's not a guy that you're going to hand the ball off 20 times a game and he's going to run it up the middle. They got to find creative ways to get him the ball. So I could see them drafting another running back because if Dobbins does go down, Harvey is not that up the middle guy. He's not going to be your 15, 20 carry guy. So if they can get him creative ways where he's catching 4 or 5 passes a game and getting the ball in the situations that he can really take advantage of, I think he can have as good or better of a season as last year. I don't think he's going to make the leap into RB1 territory, but could be an RB2 if he's used correctly. But he's not going to be that 20 carry, 50. He's not going to be that up the middle guy. So I can see them taking another running back in case Dobbins goes down, which always does happen.
Right. Yes. Yeah. There's a non-zero chance that much higher than a non-zero chance that Dobbins is going to miss time. I think the hope for RJ Harvey dynasty owners is whoever they add in the draft is a guy that eats more into Dobbins' workload rather than Harvey's workload. And we do know, you mentioned it, Steve, in space, catching the ball. He's a player that can be a difference maker out there. And you certainly don't want to take those opportunities away. As it stands right now, as far as his never too early, we switch to redraft here, his never too early FFPC tournament value, ADP on that, RJ Harvey is sitting at, running back 26 at the 603. That's Tootin and Hubbard territory. Definitely think I can get on board with that price for sure as my third running back, or perhaps even my second if I go 0 RB. It would make a lot of sense. So, yeah, I'm bullish on Harvey, but understanding the limitations. It's all about expectations. And if you make those expectations too high, probably going to be disappointed with Harvey. But if you don't and you expect him to be, top 25, top 30, I don't think you're going to be disappointed on that.
With all our online drafting that we've been doing, guys, I think, if some of these drafts were live, you would hear someone groan and draft RJ Harvey because there's just no other. If they spent their draft capital on receivers and other positions, that there's by the time you get to the 5th round, the cupboard is a little bit bare for guys that you can truly count on as being the go-to guy. And I really, I'm probably a bigger fan than Harvey than most drafters. I'm a bigger fan of Terry McLaurin than a lot of drafters too. I'm curious. Let's go back to this dynasty thing because I think the listeners and I definitely am learning a few things about trading. I acquired in a dynasty draft Parker Washington for a 2nd-round pick. You might think I overpaid for him, but I needed receivers. Let me ask you. I would love to acquire McLaurin. What's it going to take?
Draft capital, it's probably a high 2nd or a 112, kind of 112, 21, 22 is my guess. I like trying to package somebody and giving a lesser pick to upgrade to a McLaurin. I have him as an undervalued asset. I think last year there's a multitude of things. The holdout leading into the season. He gets into the season and isn't quite ready. And then by the time he's ramping up and ready to perform at a top level, Jaden Daniels goes down. It just, for the whole franchise, it kind of snowballed on him last year and nothing really worked out the way they were expecting. I think all those things could kind of flip the other way this year, and he'll have a full training camp, and they've got a pretty good offensive line. He's going to be their number 1 target. There's no reason he's not going to see 10 targets a game on that team right now. He's clearly the number 1 option by a long shot of what they have on the team right now. So I think he's a great buy for if you're a team that's contending and you have that late 1st, early 2nd. That's a great guy to go after to help you try to win the championship this year.
I like that.
He'll turn 31 in September. Obviously, the soft tissue stuff becomes more prevalent as you get into your 30s. However, I think I'm enjoying the painting. I'm enjoying the way that you're using the brush strokes on McLaurin here, Steve, because I think there is a lot to like. Probably no Deebo Samuel in this offense. Zach Ertz is probably going to be I mean, I don't even know if he's on the roster, but I know he's going to miss a lot of time given that injury that he had last year. Daniels has never been able to develop a rapport with Ben Sinnott. And anybody they bring in, Brandon Ayuk or Jawan Jennings or any of these guys, and it sounds like Jennings is unlikely, or even a rookie, it takes time to build up chemistry, build up trust. Well, McLaurin already has that with Daniels. So we could be seeing a great opportunity to buy him right now. McLaurin goes off for 80-plus catches, 1,100, 1,200 yards, maybe 8 or 9 touchdowns this year as Jaden Daniels gets back to 2024, Jaden Daniels. And then you could move him after this season for maybe a something much more substantial than you paid for him. So I'm with you. I think McLaurin's in for a nice little bounce back here.
Boy, Scott Hoyt threw us a big old softball that you guys could smash over the wall. It'll still be going.
Well, here's the thing. Scott Hoyt popping, and we love Scott, former guest of this show. If the Commanders do draft Jeremiah Love, does that hurt or help Terry McLaurin? Steve, I'll let you answer, but I'll just preface it by saying I always think a rising tide raises all ships, and that's certainly going to help McLaurin if Love is on the team.
I don't think it would really move him up or down much for me either way. I think it makes their total offense that more potent. If there's got to be more guys in the box to stop Jeremiah Love, if anything, maybe that frees up some more one-on-one coverage for Terry McLaurin. So I wouldn't look at it as a negative for sure.
A very positive situation. Whoever lands this player, the other players on the team become very, very much more interesting to me. Balky, maybe Friday night we can talk that over with old Bill Hollywood. He'll have some ideas on who's going to get this player.
Yeah, and I was sold that it was going to be the Titans, and now
you've been on Titans forever with this player.
And Schefter was saying lately, like, well, now I'm not sure if it's the Titans. Now he's like saying that maybe it's not going to be the Giants, and maybe the Commanders is where we start looking for love here. Sorry to all the Rashad White owners out there if it does happen. Doopy Smalls believing that he will not make it to 7, and Scott also saying, you never know, Commanders could move up if they're nervous about the Giants or somebody taking them there. Shifting over from the love discussion to the Brian Thomas discussion, who not a lot of people loved in fantasy last year, Steve. Can you make a solid bounce back case for BTJ, maybe not getting to where he was his rookie year, but definitely being better than he was in his previous campaign for the Jags?
I was a huge Brian Thomas fan going into his rookie season. That was my first year in my FFPC and took him in a lot of the rookie drafts. So I still own him in quite a few leagues. Disappointing season, clearly. I think the case to be made is he did have an injury last year, maybe more than one injury, but I know one of the ones he had was a wrist problem. He had a ton of drops, was having trouble hanging onto the ball, never got it going with Trevor Lawrence. I think the case to be made is we've seen him do it. We've seen what kind of player he can be. If he is fully healthy, can he make a leap closer back to what his rookie season is? To Ferrell's point, at cost, I think I like Parker Washington more as a dynasty player right now. He's one of those guys that I'm looking at in that you can get this guy. Sometimes you can get him for a 3rd round pick. And I just have a lot more faith after having watched him last year, particularly in the playoff game. He wasn't a high draft pick, but he's only 23 years old, and he's really done it when he's out there, and they've given him the opportunity. I think he's proved it to them. I think eventually might not be the worst thing if Brian Thomas were moved to another team. I'm going, how great would he be on the Patriots with Drake May throwing deep balls to him? And I have a feeling it's going to get spread 3 ways in Jacksonville with Jacoby Myers and Brian Thomas and Parker Washington, and they're probably being drafted very far apart. I'm not sure they're that far apart in the stats that I'm expecting from them. I still think long-term Brian Thomas Jr. can be a top-level number 1 wide receiver. I'm not sure if we're going to see it next year in Jacksonville. We may see it again sometime in his career. I'm not convinced it's next year. I think it'll be better than last year, but probably not as good as his rookie season.
Balky, a noted dynasty player just said I made a good move with Parker Washington. And the only thing that gives me pause is that it is April Fool's Day. And I'm not so sure if I heard it right. And then again, I want to keep talking about it because it's a 210 pick. And that means I had a team that finished as close enough to the top to earn the 210 pick. So, I gladly gave it away. I would not give we have 7 rounds of drafting in our dynasty drafts, correct? I would trade Baker Mayfield for an 8th round dynasty pick. It just doesn't work for me. Now, I've had him on teams before. Usually when I do, he rewards me with a single-digit effort when I do have to start him. You guys think I'm fooling around, but absolutely not. He has always made a fool out of me. He starts on a beautiful sunny day in Cleveland, but oh, wait a minute. The wind's blowing 90 miles an hour, and he gets 6 fantasy points. Now he doesn't have Evans. Mm-hmm. So sell me any way you can on how Baker Mayfield is going to help you in any format of fantasy football this year.
Okay, here's my sales pitch. I think after a month of the season last year, he was in MVP talks. He had a great first month coming off a great previous season. He didn't have his wide receivers healthy in that first month. That was when Igbuka was going crazy, and it wasn't a lot of Evans or Godwin. Then he had this injury where I think it was in left shoulder AC joint strain. He didn't miss any time with that. He kept playing through it, and he's getting the cortisone shots or whatever they were giving him to be able to play on game day. After that, his play kind of just fell off for the rest of the season, whether that was some offensive line issues, the injury. I don't think it had a lot to do with Mike Evans. He was performing without Mike Evans. I'm really high on a guy, Jalen McMillan. I think that's a guy that was really popping his rookie season. He was scoring a touchdown every game the end of that year. Then had the brutal neck injury last year, came back late in the year, played a few games, kind of looked like the guy I seen the previous year. Tall, getting open, big time red zone threat. Igbuka's a great was a great pick for them. I think he's a future star in the league. And Godwin, I think, is another undervalued asset that I think they still have 3 great receivers there. And if Baker's right, they can perform. If the offensive line is holding up, I think he can still have a great season. I wouldn't count on it, but as a guy that's a number 2 QB, or you have him in a super flex, I still think he's a solid option to have a better season than he did last year, and hopefully go back a little bit more.
Fair enough. And I agree that just because of his receivers. I agree with you. I like them all. I like the players down there. You didn't mention the tight end. I think he can sometimes be one of the most overlooked players in all of fantasy football.
He was great when Evans was hurt, for sure. There's a lot of times when Evans would miss and Otten would step up, and obviously with Evans vacating the Buccaneers for the entirety of the 2026 season, Otten's going to have some opportunities. I'm with you on McMillan too, Steve. I've heard a lot of people, smart people like you, talk up Jalen McMillan this season. And obviously we know that Igbuka did it over the course of at least of a third of a season, and Godwin's done it before as well. So there's still a lot to like about Baker Mayfield. Scott Hoyt saying the Buccaneers offense scares him a little bit. I get it. There is a little bit of trepidation there, but I do think, given the price and given what people are asking for Mayfield, probably pretty palatable to acquire him in trades right now. Let's go to some emails here that came in for you, Steve. And the first one comes from Don in Davis, California. He writes, "Hey, Steve, is Aaron Rodgers actually going to be sneaky good with DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman this year? Thanks so much, man." That is Don in Davis, California. Ferrell, you can recuse yourself from this question because anybody is sneaky good with Michael Pittman. But I have to ask you, Steve, Pittman and Metcalf this year, how big of an upgrade does Rodgers get from a dynasty superflex standpoint?
I mean, that receiving core in Pittsburgh last year was just atrocious. I'm not even a huge DK Metcalf guy. I'm probably more of a Pittman guy than I am a Metcalf guy.
Makes sense.
But Roman Wilson, he really, I think their number 2 receiver got 300 or 400 yards outside of Metcalf. So it was really a nothing position for them last year. So I think Pittman is a huge upgrade. I think, I don't think we're going to see vintage Rodgers, but I could see slightly better fantasy performance than he had last year, which is sneaky good. I don't think he's a guy in a 1 quarterback league that's in any conversation, but in Superflex, everybody that's starting is in the conversation. And he's a guy you can, there was a league I was in with the Doopy Smalls gentleman where it was my FFPC Best Ball format Dynasty. And it was the Triflex Superflex format where quarterbacks are important. And we made it into contention with Mahomes and Daniel Jones and lost both of them to injury. And we're able to trade a 3rd rounder for Rodgers and a 3rd rounder for Kirk Cousins, and held on for it was a $500 league. So we held on for first for a
nice
$3,000 prize. And I'm like laughing at the last week of the season as we're up like 30 points. And I'm like, well, thank God for these 40-year-old quarterbacks, or we'd be out of it, because we lost both of our starting quarterbacks, and we're able to trade for 2 40-year-old guys that got us through, and we cashed.
Shocked you didn't get Flacco.
We had Flacco.
There you go. There you go. Is Cousins really 40? He's getting there close. If he's not. That's good. Where are you from?
I grew up in Vermont and have been living in the Boston area for the past 28 years.
Okay, yeah.
Kirk Cousins, 37 years old right
37.
now. He will turn 38, I believe, in August. And this is the type of thing that I love putting on the show, Steve, because you tell the story of you winning a $500 Dynasty League in the FFPC Superflex. I mean, Triflex, obviously, but where you start two quarterbacks and you win it with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. Chef's kiss. Everybody wants to play on the FFPC when you know they can or you can win with that. So congratulations to you and Doobie on that one. That's tremendous stuff.
Good stuff.
The final email I have for you is from Mark, Bayou, Florida. What's up, Steve? How big of a leap forward is Matthew Golden going to take with no Romeo Dobbs in the picture? Mark, we appreciate the email. I'm going to bring this up right now, and I don't want this to change the way you answer this question, Steve, but when we were talking about Brian Thomas Jr. before, Rich Simony had an article in ESPN or for ESPN this week. Simony, who covers the Jets, said that there's whispers out there or I don't know what you'd call it, a possibility that not a possibility that the Jets are looking for a receiver. And if they go the trade route, Dontavian Wicks from Green Bay is one of them. Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville is one of them. Obviously, Wicks is going to cost a lot less than Thomas Jr. And we can look at this question through the frame of if Wicks actually gets moved. This, I think, not only says a whole lot about Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Jaden Reed, it says a significant amount about Matthew Golden as well. So if Wicks gets traded, if he doesn't get traded, let's talk about Matthew Golden in his sophomore season in the green and gold.
It's interesting. I think Green Bay, I look at Golden and I see what he does, and he does a lot of what Christian Watson does. So I really question how that's going to work out. Watson really appeared to be their number one last year. I do see Golden stepping up this year and becoming their number two option on the outside. I could see him break out if Watson were to go down, which has happened quite frequently over the years. Mm-hmm. The negative I see on Golden is most of his targets are way down the field. He's not getting any of those easy, short, underneath targets. So I look at that kind of format where I'm in the Dynasty Best Ball kind of format, and I kind of like him there more than I would like him where I have to choose the week he's going to blow up. Yeah. I think he's going to have some weeks where you're going to go, oh, he got 4 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown, and like it's great. And then the next week you put him in your lineup and he gets 2 catches for 35 yards and you're disappointed, and then he's out of your lineup and then blows up again, and kind of a Jameson Williams kind of player for the way he was kind of working out for a couple of years, where he's going to have those spike games and then he's going to have some real low number games. So in a best ball kind of format, I like him more than where I have to decide like, oh, he's one of my top 3 receivers. I'm not sure I'll make the right decision on that. He's a guy I've been selling more than buying. If I can move up in the draft, if I can use him to, I think there's a league I'm trying to move to from 110 to 104 by throwing in Golden, that kind of thing, to get into the top 3 receivers in this draft, and just getting a better pick. So that's kind of the way.
That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff right there, Bucky. I hope everyone was taking notes. I certainly was. There last year with that Matthew Golden, I don't think, especially during the pros versus Joes, I don't think we had a player that was so pumped up, full of hopium than there was this player. I mean, it was just, man. And when we got live to Las Vegas, he was a player that just had to be targeted.
I think part of the reason for that is twofold. Number one, the 40 he ran at the combine, that bumped him up.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, obviously draft capital is king when it comes to dynasty research and how well these guys turn out in the pros. But when you have a team like Green Bay, who seems to be allergic to drafting wide receivers in the first round plus decades, and now they're investing into the speed merchant, Matthew Golden, I mean, that does raise eyebrows of dynasty players, best ball players, redraft players. I think we had all those things combined. you were looking at it from the standpoint of like, yeah, maybe Golden is I'm a Packers guy and I didn't like the pick at all. I was like, but at a certain point, you have so many people telling you, like, no, I mean, look, connect the dots here. And then I started to believe, like, okay, maybe Golden's actually going to be pretty good. Training camp stuff was great, and then the season happened, and it just wasn't all that great. I will say about Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst talking about Golden after the season, coming into this season, they're still very high on him, understanding that in the way the Green Bay Packers run their offense, it just doesn't automatically click for these young receivers right away. So I remain hopeful about Golden, but if he has another season this year where he underwhelms, certainly will not be the most shocking piece of fantasy information I gleaned from the 2026 season. Ferrell, one more piece of information we need to get from Mr. Ezzo tonight is something you're about to ask him.
Very much so. You know, when you begin to talk about Aaron Rodgers, it makes me think one thing, Steve. If Aaron Rodgers should have bet when Pittman was acquired by the Steelers, and immediately, wherever he was in the world, called a press conference and announced that he would be re-signing with the Steelers. So, you know, he's the one player that I might not just want to be involved with. I want to know from the dynasty standpoint, and it's just guys that you should stay away from, a guy that you will not have on your team, and guys that you are seeking to try to find a way either to acquire or get in position to draft, and some of the theories and strategies you have about doing it. Because I think that you have your finger on the pulse of all things dynasty football, and you've been one of the most interesting dynasty guests that we've ever had in the history of this program. I will award you a Balky for that. That's the awards that we give out at the end of the year. And, you know, and you and old Doopsy Smalls, when you make a road trip down to Kentucky to play down here, you're going to have to earn it in redraft. We don't have that much dynasty, but you be sure you bring Doopsy with you, because you guys obviously going to argue the whole way down. He
Got that right.
He counters everything you say. So who's a guy that Doopsy's going to love, but you're going to hate? And who's a guy that you want on that roster?
The guy I won't touch, and this goes back from when he was a rookie, and Xavier Worthy. I didn't like the tape coming out of college. I didn't think he was a great route runner. I didn't think he had great hands. I thought it was all the 40 time and manufactured behind the line of scrimmage kind of touches. So that was when we did some drafts together, me and Doopy last year. I drew a line in the sand. I'm like, we're not touching Worthy. There was one draft. He was like, but he's the best value on the board. And I was like, I'm not. You do your own draft with him. I'm not touching this guy. That was like my no draft guy. I just don't believe in him. I like Rice. As far as guys that I'm looking to acquire, I did name one of them earlier, McMillan. I think he's a great target on Tampa Bay. And then there's a category of guys I just want to mention that guys that haven't signed. The value, the last 2 years, J.K. Dobbins at this time of year had little to no value. In a startup dynasty, it was like 16th round, you could get J.K. Dobbins. And then as soon as he signs in Denver, it's like, okay, now he's worth a 10th round pick. And I'm like, we knew he was going to sign. I knew he was going to play football last year. And I feel the same way about a Jawan Jennings right now, a Deebo Samuel.
Slow your roll on that. I want you to tell me. Well, maybe Balky could better tell me, but I want you to tell me what round they're going in today and what round they're going to go in after they get signed. And who's your favorite? Is Tyreek Hill your favorite?
He's not my favorite, but he's on that list. I've seen, leading up to the cut down date yesterday, and I saw Tyreek Hill go for like a 6.4, and I'm like, if you got an open roster spot, I'm like, what a great, if he's your 16th guy and you have to spend a 6th round pick on him, I'm like, that's not bad. Just for the 20% chance that he's somewhere near the Tyreek Hill of the past. I think it's an amazing value. You're not going to get anything with that 6.4 in a rookie draft.
What about redraft?
I a guy like Juwan Jennings, I assume, and I haven't done any startups yet this year. That'll happen after the draft, but I'm assuming based upon what I've been able to acquire him for in some leagues that he's like a 14th or 15th round pick, and he'll sign somewhere, and it'll probably be a decent landing spot, and immediately he'll be like a 10th round pick. It'll be a 3 or 4 round jump. That was what I've seen with Dobbins the last 2 years. So when there's these guys that they're going to be somewhere, it may not happen before the rookie draft, but you kind of just like, those are some of the best values. I've seen it for a couple years. If you have a guy that's going to sign later, Jennings was scheduled to get something like in the 15 million a year range. So he didn't get that, but that doesn't mean he's not that kind of level of player. He may have to accept a little bit less than that, but I think he'll probably end up in a good role on a 1-year prove it deal. And he could be a guy that's 1,000-yard guy for you that is available for a 3rd round kind of value of a rookie pick.
What kind of jump does Keenan Allen make?
I think Keenan's done. I think he's going to retire.
Do you really?
I don't think he's. I think he's probably at the end. I think Debo's got something left. I think Tyreek Hill maybe have something left. And any of these guys that aren't signed, as soon as they sign with the team, there's an immediate value jump. So you can get a great deal. There's some owners that are willing to sell these guys because they're not on a team and there's uncertainty, and that just creates a buying opportunity for better than value, a better value than you should be able to get them for, in my opinion.
We're going to bet a bourbon on that Keenan Allen, by the way.
Well, I just real quick about Keenan Allen. He strikes me like he has not completed he still has to undergo the Phillip Rivers portion of his career. What I mean by that is he is not going to be signed after the NFL draft. And then inevitably somebody will get hurt this season. And because Keenan Allen is a wide receiver chameleon where he just finds soft spots in the zone, get open, has those soft hands, catch it and fall down, you can look at Keenan Allen being like this type of guy that has these 5 for 70 games or 5 for 50 games or 4 for 60 games or whatever for somebody falling into the end zone a couple of times. I still think he's got a couple of seasons of that left in him.
Yep.
But I don't think anybody signs him before the start of the season.
No, I don't think anybody saw him catching 81 balls last year.
No, that is true. And I'll say this too, Ferrell, like he could be one of those guys that maybe he has like a couple of seasons like this. And then in 2032, just like this random announcement we get, Keenan Allen's decided to retire from the NFL. And we're like, oh, he's still around? Like we didn't even, but he's got to have those seasons first where it's just these partial things where he fills in and he does numbers. So guy who's doing numbers in the FFPC is one Steve Ezzo, who joined us tonight. What a treat. So much fun to have you on. Congratulations on all your success in the FFPC, not only this past year, but good luck to you going forward as well, Steve. You made it through cut down day just fine. And now we have the draft starting 3 weeks from tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun talking with you tonight. Don't be a stranger. Let's do this again sometime and enjoy the rest of your week, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And I appreciate my FFPC.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that, Steve. Kind words as he shouts out the FFPC before we let him go enjoy the rest of his Wednesday. Good stuff from him. A lot to learn about how he's treating certain players as far as trades go, how he's valuing these players for dynasty purposes. And I think that really helps us out going forward as Ferrell, you and I get ready for the NFL draft. You and I getting ready for rookie drafts coming up after the NFL draft in our dynasty leagues. Certainly wise words from the man from Massachusetts tonight.
And the whole structure of his industry relates to what he does. The profit is made when he buys the product, not when they sell the product. And the jobs are made by the products that he buys and positions within this. This is an interesting guy. He's learned a lot since day one when he walked off that college campus and into this job. You can see how he flexes it into fantasy football. It's pretty cool.
Certainly, the stresses of negotiation in his everyday job You would think he wouldn't want to do that when he gets home to manage his dynasty rosters and negotiate trades there. It just makes him that much better at it.
It's an art. He's an artiste, so he
is
just
an
keeps
artiste.
working.
You are an artiste of commissioning fantasy football, including the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, KFFSC.com. Plenty of slow drafts filling up there right now as well. I would encourage everybody to check that out. And I do believe you told me you are off next week from the show. You will reconvene on April 15th, right?
It breaks my heart, Balky. I'll miss you terrible, but
Yes.
I'll be traveling the football road next week.
We will reconvene in 2 weeks, my friend. Thank you so much. And I'll see you on Friday, obviously, for extra reps, which is going to be a lot of fun.
With Bill Hollywood.
With Bill Hollywood, which is going to be a blast. Tell everybody else what's going on with the rest of the week. Ferrell, we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
That is Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. That's going to complete our show tonight. Thanks to Steve Ezzo, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryson, of course, each and every one of you. We'll be back 10 o'clock next Wednesday for this program. Tomorrow night, coming up on FFPC Insider Access, it's going to be myself and Football Guys and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio's Bob Harris for 2 full hours, 7 p.m. until 9 p.m., talking about everything that Bob is hearing and seeing and writing about for Football Guys and talking about on SiriusXM. That's going to be a lot of fun every time Bob drops by that show. And then, of course, Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time, 6-time FFPC main event champ Bill Hollywood is going to chop it up with us. We're going to talk about Jeremiah Love. We're going to talk about Mason Taylor. We'll get into some stuff with Roma Dunze and Lamar Jackson as well. You can watch that at 10 o'clock Friday night right here on the FFPC socials. Dynasty and Empire Dynasty orphans available now at myffpc.com. We got a little bit less than 700 orphans to go when you consider we started off with, I don't know, 5,000 some. We're really getting down there. So there's some good deals out there. Check it out at myffpc.com while you're there. The Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament available there as well. $40,000 and $10,000 grand prizes there. The Big Gorilla, as Ferrell likes to call it, $1 million grand prize. Don't forget about the early Rampage tournament that is going on, the tournament within the Big Gorilla, and of course the 7 Bananas promo going on as well. Baby Gorilla 2 taking signups, $125 to enter, and you could still win $100,000 grand prize. That and so much more found at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Eastern time on FFPC Insider Access with yours truly and Bob Harris. In case you missed last night's live draft coverage of the Big Gorilla, that was a lot of fun. You can go back and watch that at your leisure. We had the 3 Goombas on it: Aiden LaCorey, Dave Tripoli, and Jake Venuti, along with Fantasy Alarm's own Andrew Cooper. A lot of great stuff on there. Go back and watch that in case you missed it. That is going to do it for tonight. For Ferrell Elliott, for Steve Ezzo, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. And as our friend Vince Staffolino reminds us, you are officially over the hump now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I'd also be remiss, I know she'd be upset if I didn't say this, but a happy 11th birthday to my daughter, Emma, who is celebrating. She is an April Fool's birthday. She had a great day today. Hopefully, it continues for her through her age 11, or now her 12th year on this planet. So happy birthday, Emma. Love you very much. And I'll talk with all of you guys on FFPC Insider Access on Thursday. And of course, Extra Reps, the HSFF Hour spinoff podcast at 10 p.m. on Friday. Be good, everybody.